You are listening to Packers Talk Radio Network.
PackersTalk.com. Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or non-profit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Alert, clear all channels.
Fresh from America's Dairyland,
ladies and gentlemen,
From the Benches Podcast.
touchdown Packers. Go
Packers Talk Radio Network. You're listening to From the Benches with Ross Uglum and Ryan Hilslund.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a midweek edition of From the Benches. I am your host, Ross Uglum. I'm a writer at PackersTalk.com, and joining me, as always, is my very best friend, Ryan Hilslund, in Milwaukee. Ryan, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Obviously excited about the Packers season continuing, but it got a little chilly here in Milwaukee. We were down below zero, around zero for a couple days, and it was not pleasant for me. I much more enjoy the milder winters I've enjoyed for the rest of my time in Milwaukee in the 20s and 30s, but I made it through, and we get to watch a Packers game on Saturday, so it's all good.
That's right. We'll dive straight into the news here. As Ryan just mentioned, Green Bay defeats Washington 35-18. At one point in that game, they were down 11-0, and then obviously rattled off 35-7, 35-7 run there. It was pretty unbelievable, the turnaround, considering the way that the first four drives went. David Bakhtiari does not go at left tackle. Sam Shields also does not go. But J.C. Tretter, instead of Josh Sitton or anybody else, started in his place. The starter at center going into the 2014 season lost his job to Corey Linsley, spelled Linsley a little bit at that position this season. He's a guy who's maybe a little bit short for left tackle, maybe a little bit light for left tackle, but after giving up a sack in the first quarter, really held his own. But the Packers, as it seems to always go, cannot win a game without losing a major contributor to injury, and that is when Davante Adams, after his best game of the season, got injured, I guess his best half of the season, got injured. It doesn't look like he will be able to go. The rumor on the street is a sprained MCL. The bright news is, though, that it looks like they are likely to get David Bakhtiari back at left tackle and Sam Shields back at cornerback. And with the speed that the Arizona Cardinals utilize in the wide receiver group, that's huge to have the Packers' fastest corner back for that game. Ryan, before we dive into the Washington-Green Bay game or even talk about the Cardinals, we've got to talk about the Vikings just for a little bit, because I felt like they maybe got a little bit too big for their britches after that NFC North championship that they secured by beating Green Bay in Week 17. We kind of thought going into that game that if they won, they were sealing sealing their fate in that season, and that ended up being the case, but not in the way that we anticipated. Ryan, what was your reaction to the Blair Walsh kick?
Well, I didn't even realize that it was such a short one. I wasn't watching the game. I was following scores on my phone and a little bit on Twitter. I saw like a quick, can't believe Blair missed it kick, assuming that was your normal Viking fan hyperbole. I figured it was a 40, 45 yarder. Didn't think to dig in much farther, and then you just texted me LOL, and I didn't get that text until the Packer game had already started, and that's when I found out it was that it was basically an extra point that he shanked. So that made me smile quite a bit, because I don't think at that point the Packers game was going super well for us. So that made me smile a little bit. But I didn't have a big gut read, laughing reaction in real time, because I was not watching.
I was in Texas. I was covering the FCS National Championship game for the Scout Network, and happened to be at the house I was staying at watching the game with my dad and one other guy. And Dad is he used to be a strong Vikings fan, and their failures over the years have kind of beaten that out of him. Also, I was able to take him to Lambeau Field twice, and so now he's pretty purple neutral. Still wants them to do well, but I think he would prefer that the Packers do well, just so I stay as happy as possible, because he doesn't really care at this point. And when Walsh missed the field goal, I just started laughing. I wasn't laughing at him. I wasn't really laughing at anybody. I just had to laugh because it was so ridiculous that so ridiculous that he missed that kick, and just a classic Viking way to end a season for sure. Ryan, did you have a chance to look at any of the fan reaction videos? And if you did, which one was your favorite?
Oh, I indulged in a few of those, yeah. But my favorite was the first one I saw, and I actually saw it. Somebody who I didn't know, or someone I don't know personally, tweeted. I just saw it in my various NFL people I follow on Twitter had retweeted the video of the guy who basically just falls to his knees and then falls on his face, and then his dog comes over and gets right up in his face while he's laying on the ground. That one ended up being a friend of a friend from in Grand Forks from when I was in college. So that was my personal favorite, because I felt like I kind of knew the guy, and he was kind of going viral with a reaction video to a bad Vikings loss. So that one I enjoyed.
I enjoyed that one quite a bit as well. I found it interesting that I don't know that dude, and I didn't really know anybody in the viral videos. You'd think that with as much time as we've spent in Vikings country, and as many people that we know, especially people that utilize social media a lot, that we didn't get a viral video of anyone we knew. But mine has got to be the one that I sent you, the old man who breaks that cane. If you guys haven't seen this one yet, it's just fantastic. It's definitely not something you want to open up at work with the speakers on. There's some, as with most of those reaction videos, there's some colorful language there, but it's this older dude who's like half in pajamas, but I think he's got like a Viking stocking cap on, which is funny because he looks like he's at his vacation home in Florida, and the dude grabs this cane that he's kind of been leaning on and just spikes it off the ground, and then picks it up and throws it again while he's cursing out Blair Walsh. It was pretty spectacular. And if you guys are like Ryan and I and can't stand the purple, take a lap around Twitter with just Viking reaction or Vikings reaction in the search, and then videos in the clarification box there. That's a good way to waste a half an hour, I would say. Especially
Don't just search Blair Walsh, though. That'll make you feel bad about being a human being.
Yeah, that's a... Don't search Blair Walsh, especially his mentions. That's a dark place, and as much as we'd like to poke fun at the Vikings players and fans and stuff like that, that's not being a good fan. He's human, and I would hate to see Packers fans do that to Mason Crosby if he missed a big kick. I just he was the only reason that team had points on the board. Period. They struggled.
Three out of 4 on field goals. Only points.
And I know that was the shortest one, and it was at the end of the game, but it's 3 degrees below zero. You're kicking a rock. I just, don't. If all the mistakes that you made in your life and your career were on TV in front of 8 million people, it would, probably not be so great. So that's kind of my long form spiel on that. Although I can't imagine I'm reaching a lot of people because of our, handful thousand of listeners. I can't imagine a lot of them are of the purple persuasion. Ryan, let's dive into the game between the Packers and the Washington Professional Football Team, shall we?
Yeah, sure. This is a Packers podcast.
Awesome. Right away, it looked very, very familiar. 4 awful drives to start the game, and Washington was able to make the game 11-0. How concerned were you when it was 11-0?
Oh, quite. It was obviously when the safety happened. The first score for Washington. It was coming off of what we've been used to, a bad Packer drive, and they go right in, get a safety. It's on the guy who's filling in at left tackle. You assumed at that point early in the game that the treader at left tackle experiment was not going to go very well. That ended up not being the case. He held up very well after that particular play. Just the sack that he gave up happened to be in the end zone. So that happens, and then the Redskins going to go right down again. Are looking like they're going to get a touchdown, but the Deshaun Jackson doesn't quite get the ball over the pylon, and then the defense holds stout, gets into just a field goal, and that was a sigh of relief. I know I tweeted it when it happened that 5-0 felt the difference between 5-0 and 8-0 felt way more significant than it should be, just because of the way the offense had been playing in the second half of the season, and then what had happened in the first, the first quarter offensively. It just seemed like maybe we could stumble into 10, 11 points and overcome a 5-0 deficit to start, but it was concerning. And then they go down, and Jordan Reed had his blazing start to the game, scores a touchdown. It's 11-0, and at that point, I started putting the beers back a little more quickly than I probably should have, and then it kind of started to turn around. But I was not confident. I was not feeling good at 11-0.
And that, kids, is why this podcast is being recorded at 11:30 on a Wednesday night, as opposed to Sunday after the game.
That is accurate.
I get where you're coming from. I was really worried, and some of the other Packer people that I've talked to, at that point when it was 11-0 and the Packers went, punt, safety, punt, or whatever it was, those first 4 drives, it was kind of like, okay, can this season just be over? Can we please have Ty Montgomery and Jordy Nelson back? Can we please can it
figure out whatever's wrong with Aaron Rodgers?
Right. Can we have the announcement that Rodgers is having blah, blah, blah surgery to clean up blah, 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 and that's why he's been bad, whatever. And then, everything turned around. And there was, I wouldn't even say that I was concerned. I just was resigned to the fact that this just wasn't going to work. And it's not that I didn't believe in the team or believe in the program anymore. Just too many bad things had happened. You can't jumble the offensive line all season long and lose your number one wide receiver and lose your inside linebacker and you know, all that before things even really got going, and then, you know, be playing without your number one corner, who, in my opinion, have been having his best season. I just said, all right, well, whatever. Let's get everybody healthy and let's give her a good, solid run in 2016 and play a second place schedule for the first time in 5 years. I thought that would be, you know, something a little bit different, and I'll be very interested to see how Minnesota does with a first place schedule. But then everything turned around. Guys that weren't making plays earlier on in the season started making plays, and Rodgers started smiling again. One of my favorite tweets that I've seen this week is that, and we, for whatever reason, this show continues to make Batman references when it comes to Rodgers, but you want him upset. He's like the Joker in that way, where when he's smiling and laughing, you're probably screwed.
Yeah, it's never good when you get the I'm not going to do the impression. You do it better than I do, but yeah, the Joker cackle. It's not something you want to hear as a citizen of Gotham.
So, what do you think, Ryan, worked offensively that wasn't working before? These defenses, as far as Minnesota and Washington are concerned, public perception is quite a bit different than DVOA. Minnesota actually, like, 14th in defensive DVOA, even though a lot of people think they're elite, and Washington is like 18th or 19th. I mean, these are pretty similar defenses. One gave up 13 points to the Packers in Lambeau Field, and the other got 35 run on them in their own building. So why do you think the Packers were so much more effective on offense than they were against Minnesota?
That is a tough question. It just seemed like, you know, things that we thought would work, that we saw happening in the regular season that weren't working. You're just banging your head against the wall, thinking, why isn't Randall Cobb getting open? Why isn't Randall Cobb being effective out of the backfield? Why isn't Davante Adams making these plays? Why is Aaron Rodgers missing open throws? I don't know. It kind of clicked, and maybe there's something to Rodgers saying that they'll turn it on when it counts. They certainly stepped it up in the first playoff game after, granted after a poor start, but a lot of things worked that hadn't worked all season. Both Starks and Lacey looked pretty solid out of the backfield. Randall Cobb looked good out of the backfield, and the handful of touches he got. When he lined up in the backfield, he caught a touchdown, which hadn't happened. Davante Adams catches a touchdown, matching his regular season total. A bunch of stuff that's tough to explain, but they looked a little bit looser. They looked more like the team I thought you would see without Jordy Nelson. Kind of, manufacturing a little bit of stuff, not necessarily taking those big shots down the field to Jordy Nelson, not doing the stuff we saw necessarily in 2014, but some of the things we thought we'd see in 2015 when the offense was going to have to adjust to having some younger guys, to having some inexperienced guys. People stepping up in the absence of your best offensive weapon, and then you had your James Jones have one of his 2 or 3 best games of the season. So it all kind of just came together. But it kind of just looked like I expected them to look all season. There's several things you can put your finger on, but it looked good as an offense as a whole. But I mean, you still had some of the things that ailed you. You still had some Rodgers misses. He wasn't pinpoint. He still only went 21 out of 36, 210 yards, 5.8 yards an attempt. He missed a throw you expect him to make every time on a Randall Cobb was open, breaking about at the goal line, and he just threw it out of his reach. You expect Rodgers to make that throw, even though he was under a little bit of heat, but there was still some of that stuff. Pretty much everyone across the board looked better in this game than they had than they had throughout the whole second half of the season. But there was still some stuff that's still ailing. It's still not a perfect offense, but maybe it's good enough to get by.
Yeah, that's the one he just can't hit. The drop in the bucket, that corner route. I'm not sure I remember that corner route being a huge part of the offense when everything was clicking, but that's still a throw that you would like to see him make, and he missed it 3 or 4 times on Sunday. And one of them was absolutely a touchdown. That the one you're talking about to Cobb was a touchdown, and I think the big part is that this defense is probably good enough to have the offense be good enough, and so if they can just continue to play at that Washington level, I think they've got a chance, but they have to do that. And the two things that I want to point to in that game, and the reason I think things went a little bit better, are number one, pass protection. I think really was quite a bit better. I think a lot of that credit should go to Treader, but at the same time, getting Bakhtari back is not going to hurt that, especially after how much time he's had off. And I'm not saying that he's been milking anything or that we should expect him to be super healthy coming back. But if anything else was bothering him, like a nagging shoulder or an elbow or a knee thing, anything like that, those injuries have gotten 3 weeks off as well. During the time that he's missed for his ankle situation. So I think you could have a fresh David Bakhtari, and he should be able to hold up in pass pro just as good, if not better, than J.C. Treader did on Sunday. And then secondly, they were a little bit more inventive with the stuff that they were doing and using Randall Cobb in the backfield, things like that. At the same time, they might have to because they might not have one of their outside weapons in Davante Adams. So you might end up with James Jones and a bunch of slot receivers unless they're going to trust Jeff Janis in a big spot. So you might have to scheme some stuff and scheme some guys open. And I thought that they did that. I thought using Randall Cobb out of the backfield was something that worked pretty well for them. Even in the run game, I thought Randall was pretty effective there. Creates interesting matchups with him in the backfield, but the utilization of Cobb with Aberdaris on the field at the same time is a big one, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to do if Adams is going to miss this game. Ryan, how disappointing is this Adams injury? It really started to seem like the last 2 weeks that the light was going back on for him, and I do mean back on. He had a good rookie season, showed a lot of flashes, had a good offseason, and these people that are just saying that he's not good or that he's poisonous to the offense are selling a young player a little bit short this early on in his promising career.
Yeah, he's one of he's like I was saying, it was kind of what you expected. He made some possession type catches and then made people miss afterwards, which is what we thought he was going to be really good at. You thought he was going to be able to use his physical abilities to create some separation on short to mid range throws, and then make somebody miss. It seems like every time he's doing something well, he's catching a ball, he's going around a receiver, he's stiff arming a receiver, he's making somebody miss and getting extra yards. That's what he's good at. He's not that downfield guy. He's not going to go up and get a lot of jump balls. But when he's in the right place and he makes a catch, he gets yards and he makes things happen once the ball's in his hand. Now the ball has not been in his hands often enough this season, but yeah, he was turning it around. He had put a couple of good performances together, and like we mentioned last week, he had shown that he can be a really solid third option once Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb come back. And this season he was going to be valuable. Being across from James Jones, going into a playoff game without even as subpar as he played this season, he's still going to be. I'd still prefer Adams after the last couple performances he's had over Jeff Janis on the outside as basically your full-time outside guy. So they're going to miss him if he can't go. That's for sure. They're going to have to adapt a little bit, even though he's not been an elite guy on the outside.
And that, you mentioned shortly the one thing that is bugging me about Adams. Drop balls don't bother me that much just because of his age. James Jones had a real problem with drop balls earlier in his career. He had a season where he led the league in touchdowns. Jordy Nelson had a real problem with drops early on in his career. And, he might be the best receiver for the Packers in the modern era. I think I'd probably take Nelson over Jennings, even take Nelson over Freeman. So the drops is something that you can get over. But his inability to be a red zone threat really bugs me. When you go and when you look at his size and you look at his vertical from the combine, which is absolutely insane, his inability to go up and win contested catches in the end zone and in the red area is maybe the thing that bugs me the most. And so hopefully that's something that gets corrected going into the 2016 season if we don't happen to see Adams again. Ryan, we can't keep talking about the offense, though, because this season is a 10-win season that has gotten at least to the divisional round because of Dom Capers' defense. And I think that at this point is not even really debatable. So let's talk about the young guys. Quentin Rollins and Demarius Randall. Just throwing out a hypothetical here. Who do you think is going to be the better long-term player, Demarius Randall or Quentin Rollins?
I think that's pretty close. They've both looked very good in their rookie years, but I think I have to lean Randall. It seems like he seems to be more technically there already. He seems like he's more of a guy who can be in the right place and be on assignment more often. Obviously, Rollins has time to catch up in that department, but the fact that Randall's already there after not playing cornerback at Arizona State in college, the fact that he can do that stuff already, along with the physical gifts that he has, I just think the ceiling for him is really high. I think if he can keep developing that stuff, he's got the tools to be really, really good as a cornerback. I think it's him. Rollins to me looks maybe more like a guy with some ball skills who you're not necessarily going to throw out on the number one receiver for a whole game, but can certainly can be a very good number two corner long term. But I just really think Randall has the tools to turn into a really good, really solid number one cornerback. And I think the ceiling for Rollins is just a little bit lower.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think that it is probably Randall. I think it's hard to explain this. I think he sort of trends toward, like, the best case scenario for him would be Patrick Peterson, in that he's an athletic playmaker and not like Josh Norman or Darrelle Revis. I don't think Randall is ever going to be an eraser like those guys are, where it's just like, yeah, your best receiver is not getting a sniff today. I don't think that that's Randall's path, but as maybe a guy that gets beat every once in a while, but makes a lot of plays, I think that's kind of maybe where you'll be at with Demarius Randall. But I do want to talk about Quentin Rollins and how interesting his development has been all season. He's just a player that when you hear about his pedigree, you're like, well, okay, well, he'll probably have decent ball skills, obviously a very good athlete, a guy that's going to make a lot of splash plays, might not always be there, in the right position because he is learning still how to play football, and maybe, a basketball guy not going to be so physical. Wow, has he been the opposite of that? And so impressive with his physicality, the way that he hits people, the way that he and does this legally. He's not a dirty player. He doesn't get flagged, but he removes guys from the football. And and creates contact at the point of the contest of the catch, and knows where he's supposed to be, understands zone coverage, understands when it's okay to come off your man, pass him off to the safety, and go up and try to make a play. You'll remember one of the attempts that Washington had at a first down that he knocked up. He passed his guy off to Clinton Dix and dislodged the ball. Just a really good player, and I think that these guys are really making Casey Hayward expendable. Ladarius Gunter had a nice pass breakup. He's a viable outside corner. Sam Shields is under contract for quite a while, and I think Micah Hyde is a useful slot corner. Quentin Rollins is a capable slot corner. And then you have Demarius Randall and Gunter, who are capable on the outside. I just think you're deep enough at corner to kind of do whatever you want at this point. And they have an exceptional defensive backfield right now. They really, really do. And then they have an exceptional defense. It's one of the best 10 defenses in the league. That's just the way it is. Let's keep talking about those young corners a little bit. Ryan, how important do you feel like these last few games have been for the young corners without their number one guy, without Sam Shields? How important has it been for Demarius Randall to be the best corner on the Packers? How important has it been for Quentin Rollins to be forced to play on the outside?
Oh, I think it's big for development, and especially in a season where you kind of expect it to be a little bit of a throwaway. You're not leaning on these guys to go and make a Super Bowl run. Certainly it's possible. We're in the divisional round of the playoffs. But to get these guys late big game experience, they're basically out on islands. There aren't any veterans to come in and spell them. They're not getting part-time snaps because somebody else is out there. It's these guys out on the outside, and that's huge for a young cornerback. And it's really nice that it's happening late in the season. It's happening in pressure games, in big games. You had a game where the division title was on the line. You had a first round road playoff game. This is big time game experience, and they were eased into it a little bit at the beginning, but they have both grabbed their roles and played pretty well in them. So the fact that they've kind of given this opportunity to go out on an island and be the two guys is big. And like you said, we've got a bunch of depth at cornerback. If Sam Shields comes back next season, if Gunter develops a little bit, if they go into the season, knowing that Casey Hyde isn't really going to play a lot of safety because HaHa and Burnett are going to be there full time. Like you said, I think Hayward becomes a little bit expendable as a free agent after this season. But you kind of needed this time, these few games to watch those guys with the pressure on the outside with no help, from a veteran to come in and spell them. It's big for development. It speaks a lot.
Yeah, it's huge for their confidence, and it's huge for future versatility. Getting Rollins those outside reps is absolutely huge. Getting Randall the experience at outside cornerback, at number one cornerback, is a big deal, and I think bodes extremely well for the 2016 defense. I think that any improvements made to this defense can be focused on the front seven, just because I believe that with the jump you're going to see from HaHa Clinton Dix year 2 to year 3, and the jumps that you'll see from Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins year 1 to year 2, Pro Football Focus already has this defensive backfield as one of the best 3 in the whole NFL. Next year, if these guys progress, you could be looking at Seattle Seahawks type level of efficiency on the back end, and then you just have to improve what you're doing on the front seven. Granted, we all understand that Ted Thompson doesn't necessarily think along the same lines that we do, or even the national media does, but it's at least a thought, and it's a hope moving into possibly the offseason. Speaking of moving into possibly the offseason, Ryan, it seems like these Packers really believe that they're going to go down there and win. Rodgers seems at ease. He seems confident, says all the pressure's on the Cardinals. McCarthy is just being my dude again. Talking about, look, we're nobody's underdog. We're going down there to win. We expect to win. This seems like a team that's going to be disappointed if they go down to Arizona and don't win against a team that I think, within the last 16, 17 days here, blasted them 38-8. Do you believe these guys, Ryan? Do you believe that the Packers believe as much as they say that they believe?
I don't know if it's necessarily a belief thing. I don't know if they have that high a level of confidence, but I certainly believe the general attitude. They've got nothing to lose. Why are they? Why would they go down there pressing? Why would they go down there thinking they've got to do too much? Thinking they've got to live up to any expectations? They got their asses whooped in the same stadium 2 weeks ago, and now they're going to go in and see what they can do. I don't think anyone is going to expect the Packers to go down and get a victory, but so why not go in and lose? Why not throw it all out there, see what happens? Try to play up to the level that they know they can play at. These guys are certainly confident players, and as a team overall, they know what they're capable of. They know that all of these guys playing together could be one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the league. They know they can be that good. They just have to put it together. So, I totally believe that they're going down there loose and confident. But I don't know if they necessarily are. I don't know if they believe they're going to go down and win. But I certainly like their attitude.
Yeah, I mean, the two things for me, I think, first of all, they understand that they were a little bit shorthanded last time. They get that they probably shouldn't have been playing, Donnie Barclay at left tackle. They understand that it would be nice to have Sam Shields run around after John Brown and run around after Michael Floyd. I think they get all that. And then, at the same time, I think there really is something to just understanding that they might have found something here in this game against Washington. They are playing better on offense. The defense is getting their best corner back, and they really, I think, have reason to believe that they're a better ball club than they were on December 27th. And I think, that there probably is reason to think that they can win. Ryan, do you believe?
I believe more than I did if you told me this matchup was going to. Wow, that wasn't worded very well. I believe more today than I would have if you would have told me after that first Cardinals game that we were going to go back to Arizona in the divisional round. I would have probably cried a little bit. But like you said, they've got some guys back. There's some more things that the Packers can do in this game that they couldn't do in that game. With that poor an offensive line, there's not a lot you can do. The receivers are not at a level where they're going to get a ton of separation right away. They're not going to be wide open, so you need pass protection to be able to let Rodgers make things happen, and that just was not there in the first game against Arizona. I think that is going to be much less of a problem in this game than it was in the first game. I don't think you're going to see 8 sacks or whatever it is. I don't see that happening. So I believe a little bit more. I don't know if I'm ready to.
Yeah, for me, it goes back to just exactly what we talked about when we talked about that thing where it was 11-0 Washington. In that, I just don't know if I want to reinvest emotionally into this season. I had kind of given up's not the right word because I'll always believe, but I had emotionally distanced myself from the 2015 season and was already trying to figure out how to win the title in 2016. I'll tell you this much, though. They go to Arizona and win. I'm back in 100%. I'm believing. I don't care if it's the Seahawks at Lambeau Field with a chance for revenge, or if it's another trip out to Carolina to stop SuperCam. If they win this game, I have no choice but to believe. Ryan, let's talk about the other way that this thing could go. I mean, let's face it, the Packers are at least touchdown underdogs. Depends on where you look. This is a set of two teams that were separated by 30 points the last time they played. Scott Tolzien played in the last game, and not for any sort of reason that you would enjoy. Is there anything that could happen on Saturday that would make you want any part of the coaching staff relieved of their duties after the season? And not just, things that happen on Saturday, but looking at everything that happened after the bye week, including what may or may not happen on Saturday. Can anything go down that would make you want to get rid of anyone?
It would have to be something pretty extreme. Not based on anything in the second half of the season, and I can't see anything happening in the Arizona game that would change my mind about that. Going into this season, over the last handful of seasons, it's always been why isn't Dom Capers, why isn't the defensive staff getting more out of these guys defensively? Well, they've certainly answered those questions. They've turned the defense into something pretty special, something really fun to watch. And as far as the offense goes, we've harped on how bad the offense has been all season, but the guys on that offensive staff, pretty much everybody has been there through a handful of elite offensive seasons, and I can't take one bad season and erase the two or three previous. You go last season, and we were one of the two or three best offenses in the league, and not that much change. You didn't have a huge personnel change except for the loss of Jordy Nelson. There wasn't a lot of offensive staff turnover except for the play calling fiasco. But I'm not ready to let anybody go on the offensive side of the ball just based on their track record. I can't overreact to one season of poor performance. It just seems like a fluke. It seems like next season they're going to come back. They're going to go right back to being that high flying offense that just clicks and you expect to score every time they have the ball. It just seems like they're going to get back to that. So I'm not ready to let anybody go on the offensive side of the ball. And all the defensive coaches have stepped up and have answered any questions I would have had coming into the season about them. So I'm not ready to let go of anybody on the coaching staff just yet. And it'd have to be running Rodgers out there at middle linebacker or something before I'd start calling for heads. I just don't see much happening.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind maybe a restructuring on the offensive side of the ball.
Sure.
I think, the wide receivers have had really a rough year, and I would not mind maybe somebody with a little bit more expertise in that area taking over the wide receiver group. Maybe, they probably need, instead of a passing game coordinator or being, in the room with the quarterbacks, they probably need someone paying attention to them at all times. I don't really care who that would be. I really wouldn't have a problem if Joe Philbin can't find any work to find him a position back on this offensive staff. He certainly works well with McCarthy, works well with Rodgers. I believe that the two teams parted ways amicably. They lost him, and then they lost Ben McAdoo, who was just named the head coach of the New York Giants. I think what you're going to see is maybe a slight restructuring, but I'm with you. I don't really care what happens on Saturday. This was a rough year injury-wise, and rougher than normal. And in 2014, I think went really well in that way. And if the Packers had stayed a little bit healthier this year, I'm still not convinced that they wouldn't have been better. In fact, if you just go through a normal year where the Packers sweep the division at home, they go from 10-6 to 13-3 real damn quick. And all those games were one-possession losses. And that doesn't even account for any of the other stuff, the Carolina game that was close at the end, or any of the other losses that they incurred. The real butt kickings that they took were Arizona and Denver, but this team wasn't that far away. And I just think that the defense has improved so much. The defense now has so much talent on it that I want to give the offense another shot with a full deck of cards before I just start offing people and start pretending like McCarthy's message has gotten stale, or any of the other different things that you might hear about this staff or whatever. Ryan, last question before we get to the prediction part of this here program. Why can the Packers win on Sunday or Saturday? I guess the game is.
Well, we kind of already talked about it a little bit, because they found something that clicked. They found something that clicked on offense. They're going to have hopefully have their preferred offensive line in for the first time in quite a while, which they certainly did not have in the first game in Arizona, which was probably the biggest the biggest reason that game went as poorly as it did was just a hole at offensive line. So that they come back there, they have a little bit of confidence on offense. They rolled a little bit. They scored some points finally, and the defense is playing really well. They've been the better unit for most of the season, and I don't expect 38 Arizona points to be scored in this game like they did last time. So a lot more things are in the Packers' favor going into this week than they were in the first game against Arizona. So there are reasons to be optimistic. There are things that go in the Packers' favor.
I tend to agree. I think Green Bay found something on both sides of the ball last week, and I think that from a matchup perspective, if they do get Shields back, they're just in such a better place. I think Demarius Randall is a pretty good matchup for Michael Floyd. I think John Brown and Sam Shields match up really well. And Casey Hayward against Larry Fitzgerald in the slot is something I think that they can watch. What you will see, though, I think is the Micah Hyde treatment on David Johnson. I think the Packers figured out that they need to play more dime against a team that's going to try and spread them out and not be afraid to substitute out and not need to play that nickel all the time. They would go straight from base to dime in that Washington game. I watched them do it a number of times. Send Jake Ryan to the bench, bring in Joe Thomas, and not that Joe Thomas has played all that great this season, but I think to get either him or Hyde on Johnson instead of Jake Ryan is going to be such a big deal. And then the Packers' corners really do match up well with what the receivers can do for Arizona. And then, Carson Palmer's a statue. They're the best offense in football, Arizona. I have nothing but good things to say about them. But if Green Bay can rush the passer the way that they did against Washington, if they get Shields back, they match up okay on defense. So if they have it figured out on offense, they have a chance. Because I think the defense is going to be better. I think that Calais Campbell is not going to be just ragdolling a beat-up Josh Sitton or going out a little bit further and embarrassing Don Barclay. I think you're going to have your 5 preferred starters in on the offensive line. I think you're going to have J.C. Treader waiting and ready if anybody is to go down. And he is a guy that I think now that the team and the fans have full confidence in can go in and give a replacement level performance. And so I think they're just in a better spot, hopefully on offense. I know they're going to be in a better spot on defense, and they can give these guys a game. And I think, they can win. It's certainly possible. But like I said at the end of the last podcast, all I cared about was a chance. If there's a 20 or 30% chance that we beat the Cardinals, great. If that goes up to 40% because we've got the Seahawks at home in a 5 degree below zero death match at Lambeau Field, awesome. Because the only thing that matters is winning the title. I mean, they didn't lose to Washington, so they're not going to get a high 20s draft pick. They're going to be picking back where they always pick, and Ted is probably not picking whoever the other guys were going to pick anyway, so it doesn't seem to matter. So the draft order's out of the question, doesn't really matter. Just win, baby. Just win the title. That's the only thing that matters, and as of this recording, the Packers still have a chance. Ryan, give me your prediction for Saturday's game, and then I will give you mine.
I cannot bring myself to pick a Packer win. I think it certainly will be closer. I'm gonna go with a final score of 27-21 Cardinals. I think the Packers will have a chance at the end. They'll need to score a touchdown, and I just don't think they're going to quite have enough. I've got a one score victory for Arizona.
Wow, would that really suck to have the ball at the end? Yeah, 27-23 Cardinals. I can't buy all the way back in. They just got schwacked the last time they played these guys, and nothing good has ever happened in that godforsaken stadium. So I think that the dream ends here, and Vikings fans will never ever let her admit this, but the Packers will be prohibitive favorites to win the division again in 2016, and try to get it figured out in capturing Super Bowl 51. So, guys, we want to thank you for listening all season long. The season's not over. It might even continue. We might have a Victory Monday edition of From the Benches, hot off the presses for you next week. But if you like what you've heard here on From the Benches and you enjoy the witty repartee between Ryan and I, subscribe to the Packers Talk Network on iTunes. Give us a review. We prefer those with 5 stars. And leave a comment. It helps us come up a little faster on the old iTunes search module when people look for Aaron Rodgers. They look for the Green Bay Packers or Packers Talk or whatever. And give us a follow. Give us a follow on Twitter. Like our Facebook page. You can follow me personally. I am at Ross Uglum. Ryan, where are you?
I am at Hillsland358.
You can also follow the show itself at From the Benches, or you can follow the network at Packers Talk Net. Thank you, as always, for listening, and go, Pack, go.
From the benches. From the benches.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.